So we've talked about how our production miracle and all this stuff has pulled us out of the Depression, but let's look a little bit closer at how the war is really affecting the economy. So during the war, our national debt is going to totally skyrocket because of this massive amount of military spending on the war effort. Our national debt is actually going to go from $42 billion to almost $300 billion, which is just absolutely outrageous. Sort of hilarious, though, when you think about the national debt today, which is like 22 trillion. So like a $300 billion national debt would just be hilarious. But at the time, you know, that's pretty intense and that's pretty scary. So the government is going to really be trying to encourage people to buy war bonds to be able to cut into that debt. Producing war goods, though, is going to lead to a scarcity of consumer goods, and scarcity is going to lead to increased prices. So we will see some things get a little bit more expensive, which is going to like make selling those war bonds a little bit more difficult because times are just going to be tighter financially for a lot of people. So we're going to form something called the Office of Price Administration, the OPA, and it's basically going to be their job to like price control and wage control. So like they're going to be the ones making sure people are getting paid enough and controlling prices to see that things don't get too out of hand and that inflation doesn't get too out of hand. Rationing is going to be a really big push. Citizens are basically going to be given like a coupon book with a list of goods inside, like butter, tires, shoes, etc. So that you had to turn in your coupon when you bought that particular item. We're trying to make sure that we conserve all of our raw materials, basically, because we want all of our raw materials to be conserved for war, essentially. We want tires to be going on military jeeps, not like just random cars that people are buying to just like drive around and have a good time in. Now, obviously, some people are going to want to buy stuff regardless, even if it is rationed. So we'll see a rise in the black market, but overall rationing is going to do a lot. There's also going to be a big push to like, grow your own food, grow your own garden. People call them victory gardens. There was also a big push to like can your own food, preserve your own food, things like that. And that's really going to help contribute to the war effort a lot, and really help out the economy in that way. Now, how do you get everyone to do all that stuff? How do you get everyone to ration and to can and do all that stuff? But propaganda. So just like in World War I, we will have an organization in the government devoted to putting out government propaganda called the Office of War Information, the OWI, and they would work with the media to encourage the war, basically shine a spotlight on wartime needs while playing down problems at home like discrimination and poverty. And Hollywood's going to go right along with this. Big filmmaker Frank Capra, for example, made a documentary called Why We Fight that was all about like why we're fighting in the war and how we need to beat fascism and things like that. Celebrities are even going to get involved in trying to sell war bonds and stuff. So propaganda, we're still going to see those 7 types of propaganda we talked about in World War I. They played into stereotypes and into patriotism, and they really make the war effort at home feel a lot more cohesive. So we see things like this, united we're strong, with all the different allied powers standing there together with, you see Great Britain, America, and USSR standing at the forefront together. And then this one, fear, someone talked. And now because someone's talking about troop movements, like the secrets got out and this soldier has died, like on our watch type of thing. So we're still seeing all of those different propaganda types playing out. Now we've talked about launching this land invasion into France and how long it would take to plan this. So we start planning all of this at the Tehran Conference in November of 1943. We basically meet there, Great Britain, the United States, and the USSR, to talk about our plans going forward. And that's where Stalin is just like, really, guys, I really need some of this pressure alleviated. I need something happening somewhere else to distract the Germans. So that's where we agree that we will start bombing Germany. That's where we agree that we'll start fighting in Italy. But that's also when we agree that we will start working on opening up the Western Front again and launching a land invasion into France. Great Britain was a little reluctant of this because they knew how difficult it was going to be, but we do all agree that we will make this happen and work our way into Germany. So this is going to be called Operation Overlord, and this is the D-Day invasion of Normandy. If you're wondering what the D stands for, it actually stands for day. And that's a little anticlimactic, but the truth nonetheless. So planning Operation Overlord is going to be a massive take on. It's going to be landing almost 50 different military divisions all along a 50-mile stretch of beaches in Normandy, France, which is actually 5 beaches all next to each other. And all the beaches had code names. So you see here I've got Omaha Beach, which I'll talk about in a second. But if you go to Normandy, France, and you ask where Omaha Beach is, they're going to look at you like you're nuts because it's not actually called Omaha Beach. That's just what we called it, in the planning stages of Operation Overlord. So we need a distraction while we're setting up all this. We don't want the Nazis finding out we're doing this. So we set up a fake army on paper under General Patton, and we set up a fake headquarters in Great Britain with like cardboard tanks and everything, including fake radio frequencies, like just a really elaborate, like fake invasion action happening in Great Britain, and it totally works. The Germans find out about it, and they're like, oh my god, they're planning an invasion of Germany, and they're distracted by that, which gives us all the time we need to plan this invasion out perfectly. So we launched the D-Day invasion on June 6th of 1944. That morning at about 5:30, over 11,000 planes were first used to destroy German communication and transportation networks, which is basically called softening the beach. If you've ever heard that expression, it basically just means they are literally like shooting onto the beach, trying to break up any, like if there are telegraph or telephone lines on the beach or anything like that, but also trying to set off and detonate any mines that might be on the beach. A lot of these beaches are mined. Then at 6:30 a.m., the first troops will land. Now, American troops will be invading a beach called Omaha Beach, and it ends up being the toughest, and we knew that going into it, that it would be the most difficult. The Germans were going to put a really difficult fight here because they had built trenches into these cliffs up here. You see this line on this picture? These are cliffs, and in this, the Germans have built this like concrete military fort, and it's all trenched down. And on top of that, the beaches of Omaha were actually mined as well. So this is, D-Day is known as The Longest Day. That's actually a movie called The Longest Day with John Wayne about D-Day, and it's a really great movie. It's on your movie list if you're interested. But this was a very, very difficult invasion. It's the largest land invasion in the history of ever, and it goes off successfully, even though many of our troops will die before they even actually make it onto the beach, but it will be successful. So within 1 month, another 1 million Allied troops will enter Europe through the beaches at Normandy, which will help us. By the way, this is what it looked like to the Germans. Can you imagine waking up and all of a sudden seeing all of this? It's just very, very shocking. So we just came in like with every resource that you could possibly imagine. Very intimidating and terrifying, but that's why it worked. So this will eventually lead us to VE Day, which we can get on about here now. So as we are working our way through France, the Russians are working their way through Eastern Europe, slowly taking back Latvia, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, and all of these places. On the other side of Europe, by August, the Allies have made it to Paris, and we've liberated Paris. So the Germans know at this point that they're going to lose. It's just a matter of time. At this point, there are a lot of different assassination attempts on Hitler because the Nazis had really lost all faith in him. Rommel was actually involved in one of these plans called Operation Valkyrie. There's a movie on it with Tom Cruise called Valkyrie. On July 20th of 1944, someone planted a bomb in Hitler's headquarters. It actually killed and injured about 20 people, but not Hitler, even though he was standing right next to it. So everyone ended up getting caught. Rommel actually poisoned himself so he wouldn't have to go to trial and be executed. So Hitler's like just really nuts at this point. So in December of 1944, he orders a counterattack near the Ardennes. If you remember, I told you it was like a forest on the edge of France and Belgium. And the Germans totally catch the Allies by surprise here, and they almost win. This is called the Battle of the Bulge. And it went on through the month of December, and it was really difficult, and the Allies almost lost because they weren't able to get any support or reinforcements in because it was very stormy. It was like a blizzard around at that point. But by a miracle, on December 23rd, the skies like cleared right over Belgium, and the Allies were able to start getting air reinforcements and supplies back into our guys and push the Nazis back. So it just ends up actually hurting the Nazis more. By January of 1945, the Red Army has reached just outside the eastern side of Berlin. By April, Mussolini has been captured and executed, and the Allies reached the western side of Berlin. So by April, we've got Berlin surrounded, and we begin to move into the city. Hitler, by this point, is officially crazy. He's taking way too many drugs. He's actually on a lot of medication. He actually has a permanent shake from how much medication he's on, a permanent tremor, and literally no one is following his orders anymore. So he ends up killing himself. His bunker is bombed shortly after, and then on May 7th of 1945, Germany surrenders, and we call that VE Day, the Victory in Europe Day. This is a photograph of New York City on VE Day. Fun, right? It looks like a good time. So, unfortunately, FDR did not live to see VE Day. He actually died a few weeks before, which is really sad. But he was into his 4th term as president by that point. The man had been president forever. Had he served out that term, he would have been president for 16 total years, which is just absolutely insane. So he did die, though, a few weeks before making our president. By this time, Harry S. Truman, who had been FDR's vice president in his last and final term there. So it's Harry S. Truman who's going to be calling the shots from here on out. So now Italy has fallen and Germany has fallen. So our only enemy left is going to be Japan, which is what we'll get into next time.